You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final podcast on the 2025-26 Ashes, as England do slide to what was a fairly inevitable defeat on day 5 in Sydney. Jacob Bethel and Tongue out early. Australia chased down the total of 160 to win by 5 wickets and claim a 4-1 series win overall. I'm Jack Hope. We'll be joining Max Rowe Brown, who will be joining us to talk through the drama of the last day. How you doing, Max?
Morning. Yeah, I'm fine. It's all over. It's going to be an interesting adjustment, I think, in the next few weeks to not getting up and first thing in the mornings talking about cricket. It's going to be a shame, I think. Going to miss that. Quite like the mornings of the morning podcasts. They've been good fun.
Yeah, but we do now go into probably my favourite time slot for podcasts, which is the after work podcast slot. Like what have we got? We've got a period of T20 cricket where all the games finish between 6 and 7, or 6, I think, because of time zones. So you can get your T20 fix. It's going to be quite a long T20 fix.
It always is, isn't it?
After work, yeah. Look, Max, before we get going, just a reminder to everyone to click like and subscribe, and a big thank you to everyone who's followed us during the series. As I said, we'll be going on to talk about the T20 World Cup pretty soon, followed by the IPL, followed by the English Summer. So there's plenty more cricket and cricket chat where this came from, so do stick with us. Max, though, for the final time, can you summarise the day's play?
Yeah, I mean, you've done most of it already, to be fair. It was a shorter day than normal, but start of the day, obviously, England were hoping for an extra miracle on top of the additional miracle from Jacob Bethel. He meandered his way to his 150 before the new ball and Mitchell Starc did for both him and Josh Tongue. A couple of nice shots down the ground from Tongue and Matthew Potts to add a few runs to the overnight total, but yeah, 160 was the ultimate lead that England ended up with. Never likely to be trouble for Australia, and they fairly quickly set about doing their work. A 60-odd run opening partnership. On paper, of course, Jake Weatherall was actually out quite a bit before that, and Kumar Dharmasena just decided that he wasn't out because, sure, why not? And there was a little wobble at times. Josh Tongue bowled pretty well again, but got both the openers. Steve Smith was done by a ripper from Will Jacks, bowled him through the gate. Khawaja sadly not able to score the winning runs on his final Test match, and a little bit of nonsense of Marnus Labuschagne getting run out as well to almost give a teaser of something unexpected, but realistically it was never on. A decent effort from England to take the 5 wickets and make it look like a respectable defeat, but overall the result was never really in doubt, and Australia wrapped it up, a 4-1 win, and good value for that.
It was nice, I thought, on the final day that we got a couple of the classics one last time.
Yeah,
like in the encore. Have you ever seen a band that plays their favourite song at the beginning and then again?
Actually, I did. Like a month ago, I went to see Twin Atlantic, and they opened with they opened and finished with their top song, which I've never seen a band do before, and I was quite surprised actually because they've got quite a lot of songs. They didn't need to, but it's quite good fun. I also gather that Europe start and end on the final countdown, and Chesney Hawkes starts and ends on I Am the One and Only, which is less surprising because they do only have one song.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't just play that song over and over again. Now the extended
15
edition.
times.
Now the remix. Yeah. It was good to see Snicko, and what was the other thing that's happened loads? Can't remember where it was. You just said
England dropped a catch.
England dropping a catch. That was it, Max. Yeah, it was good to get one more drop and one more Snicko malfunction into the final day's play. Really, tied a bow on things.
It's fitting, yeah. The cherry on top. The icing on the
Yeah.
cake. All those good
Exactly.
good idioms, cliches.
Max, England go down 4-1. Over the series, we look back across the series. We don't have to worry about today too much. I think we knew what was going to happen. Over the series, they won one match. They were probably quite strong favourites to win one other match, and lost it. And were beaten fairly soundly, I would say, 3 times. Although they, at moments in all 3 of those tests, they didn't look beaten. They weren't completely railroaded, I don't think, on like day one in any of those 3. How do you rate the series overall, and where next for England?
Yeah, well, that's obviously the question that everyone's trying to answer right now, isn't it? There's a lot of histrionics going on in particularly BBC articles and all the usual stuff. Rip it up. It's a disgrace. Everyone should be sacked. This will never work. I told you so. I told you this would happen. All the classics, all the usual stuff. I think when we, before the tour started, when we did our previews, we were asking what a successful tour looks like. I think we probably said winning 2 tests was like a good target for something successful. Winning a test was bare minimum, and being competitive. So I think like some of those boxes have been ticked. Obviously, they won the test match. It was a bit of a lottery, but equally, some of the defeats were, like you say, there were moments in those test matches where England were, on top or in a good position. Even the first test of the series, England, they ended up giving Australia a chase that was the highest score that a team had to put together, and the way it fell meant that they did that easily. But equally, England were in good positions in much of that test match. So you can't say it was a success. You can't say going to Australia and losing 4-1 is a success, but you do have to temper the disappointment, I suppose, to a degree, with like what actually was the expectation. England hadn't won a test match away in Australia in like 15 attempts before the series started, or whatever the number was. So, you have to remember what the wider context is in terms of how difficult England found it to actually win a game of cricket in Australia. So they did that. That's one good thing. Yeah, there was a lot of really bad stuff in there, and stuff that they'll look back and wish they had their time again. So there's a lot of disappointment, but I think you do have to. Yeah, I don't know, 4 out of 10. If you're saying like 6 was decent, maybe I don't know, a 4 or a 5. Not like the biggest disaster in history, not the most disappointing England Ashes series in recent memory, because they did win a game. There was some stuff. Sure, the game they won came when it was all over, but I'm finding it difficult to be too devastated by the whole thing, because we didn't come into this expecting England to win, right? Like we said, it was more likely that England would win than lose 5-0. It got a bit closer to that than maybe we expected, the 5-0. But equally, we didn't expect England to come away from this series with a win. So you do have to remember that, I think, when you start looking back at things.
Yeah, I'd mostly agree with that. Like, what I think is that the result from an England perspective is not disappointing whatsoever. Like the 4-1 or 3-2 or 3-1, if there was some weather, 3-0, 4-0, were all that's the bucket of results that were most likely in the series. I think what will be disappointing from an England perspective again is that they didn't play that well that often. Like if we wanted to go through the highlights of the series, they're relatively few and far between on an individual player level. Like you've got Joe Root has had a good series. Then Josh Tongue has had a good series, and Archer has had a good series. And you could maybe throw Bethel in, but he only played 2 tests, and probably if you have a look at his overall average, it ends up being like 35 or something like that. So it's sort of in the Harry Brook category anyway. Then there were a few Harry Brooks, Brook himself, obviously. Cast was sort of fine. And then there were quite a few duds. Like, we know that Ben Duckett is better than Ben Duckett batted. We are pretty sure. We don't necessarily know for sure, but we are pretty sure that Jamie Smith is better than he batted. We think he probably could have got another 50 or 60 runs across the series from Harry Brook. And bowling, I don't know. I think bowling is where the big strategic failure of this whole project really lies. Like,
yes.
We don't know enough about the bowl. Yeah, I mean, like, I think what we all wanted, and I think actually this is where a lot of the disappointment's coming from. I think you were alluding to the Jonathan Agnew article on the BBC earlier, who called this the most disappointing series in his 10 trips to Australia. And I was looking at that and I was like, it was pretty disappointing last time when they lost 4-0 and weren't competitive whatsoever. It was pretty disappointing when they lost 5-0 and were like running for cover and players were retiring so that they didn't have to face Mitchell Johnson. It was quite disappointing, the 4-0, where the only good moment for England was when Alistair Cook batted forever on an absolute highway. They were all probably more disappointing than this. I mean, like, England won a test, which is a good thing. And
basically every series in Australia,
a couple of others.
Every series in Australia that England haven't won in the last 25 years is more disappointing than this one.
I'd basically say that. Yeah, you could maybe even go a bit further than that. I mean, Nasser Hussain's tour in 2002. That was pretty disappointing. I mean, I guess the players they weren't expecting much more, but I don't. It's hard to be disappointed with the results, but I do think the reason some of this the reason for the I'm disappointed articles. Well, there are a few reasons, but one of them is that the series just wasn't very good. There were quite most of the matches were fairly uncompetitive after day 2. If they got to beyond,
some of them were over by day 2.
Yeah, a couple of them were over at the end of day 2. The pitches weren't fantastic most of the way through. The kind of series defining battles, if you like, pretty few and far between. Like it just didn't really happen. There wasn't really much fire and fury. And I think the other thing that will disappoint a lot of people, probably rightly, is that England's wider attitude does grate a little bit. Like the party trip to Noosa, Ben Duckett getting smashed. It come out this morning that Harry Brook got in a fight with a bouncer on the tour to New Zealand
the night before a game. Really poor.
So I think between those two things, I mean, there is a feeling disappointing around it. But if you look at purely just the cricket, 4-1 is pretty middle of the road.
Yeah.
For what it's a pretty expected outcome. Would just liked, I think, so to give them more. I'd give them like a 3.5 or a 4 out of 10. To give them an extra point or two, would liked a couple of the test matches to be a little bit closer.
Yeah,
and they weren't. Let's talk about where England go next. Australia have won it. I mean, well done, Australia. Do you want a medal? You get an urn. There you go. Let's talk about where England go next. There have been different noises that have come out about this. There was a report that there's going to be a review into the series. I don't think this has been confirmed, but there's been a report that there's going to be an inquisition. There have been reports that McCullum and Stokes will be allowed to stay, but they have to change. There have been reports that they're going to go. There have been reports that everything will just carry on. What will happen next, Matt? Make the call.
I think they're both going to stay. Like you've pointed out, a couple of times recently. There's a T20 World Cup just around the corner, so you can't really just change the head coach when he's the coach of both. I think they've ruled out splitting them, so I think they will change. I think they'll all probably get together into a room and say you can carry on, but I don't know. You need a new PR department. That's what England need. That's what England have needed for the last year, right? Like a new PR department and tour planner, because some of the let's say extracurricular activities haven't exactly gone down well. We were, I suppose, supportive, I'd say, of the trip in general, having a break in the middle of the series, not a problem. Even the Aussies came out and were like, look, like it's a long series. We've gone to see our families. Why shouldn't England have a bit of time off? That's all fine. Obviously, going out and getting smashed and getting recorded on someone's phone, not knowing how to get home, is a slightly different matter. And I think there's definitely an element of when they carry on, there needs to be I think there'll be some sort of like a team charter or like some standards or something like, by the way, you are a professional cricket team. You do need to remember that kind of thing. A bit more of that, like back office stuff, I think may come in, but I expect them to carry on. Ben Stokes, I expect will carry on as captain, fitness permitting. Obviously, he went down injured again, but still took the field with the boys, which was very gritty of him, if not particularly sensible, because he was clearly hampered. So yeah, I don't think it'll be dramatic changes, and I don't think it should be dramatic changes, because you just need to take a little bit of time to let the dust settle and actually give the people in charge an opportunity to say, right, okay, look, here's what I think we should do better next time, or here's what we did wrong, rather than just be like, oh, you lost 4-1, I'm going to sack all of you and start again, because that very rarely works. Obviously, the big reset they did when McCullum and Stokes came in, that was kind of necessary, but that was on the back of a run of winning one game in 17 Test matches and some of the worst Test cricket we've seen since the late 90s and early 2000s from the England side. And we're not in that position, right? Like we said, the result itself wasn't disastrous. There were moments in the series, and there are elements that are very disappointing and things that can be done wrong, and some very obvious holes that need to be sorted out. But again, some of that isn't just Stokes and McCullum, right? Like the fetish for 90-mile-an-hour bowling and that kind of thing. That comes from Rob Key as much as anything. So if any heads are going to roll, I want it to be Rob Key's head personally. But I don't think anyone will be moving particularly. I think they just need to get their structures a bit more in place, sort out the coaching situation, because running into a big series without a fielding coach and a bowling coach in play is pretty dumb, let's be honest. So I think they just need to take themselves more seriously. I think that's the big change they need to make.
I think that's a very succinct way of putting it. That this is a decent team that don't take themselves very seriously. It's like you get these people, don't you, who are quite talented or good at stuff, engaging individuals, but they're like terrified of being seen to try hard at stuff. Like, they don't want to be try hard guy. They want to be
on their report card. They want to be B5.
Yeah, they want to basically show off that they could be good at something, but without ever putting in the effort to try and be good at something.
Yeah.
England are a bit like that, and they need to be a little bit braver, I think, and to try to be really good, and to accept that they might fail and that might be a little bit embarrassing, and that or it might bruise their egos a little bit. Or you can do, you can do what you're doing now. You just be perfectly decent and have a good time. But it would be nice, I think, if, as you say, they took it a little bit more, took themselves a little bit more seriously and were a little bit more aspirational.
It is cricket, and cricket is silly, but it is also professional sport, and you are being paid to go and represent your country at a sport. So there's a limit to how unserious you can be.
I think as well, if we're talking about where we're going to go next, the traditional thing now is to fire the coach. Who have we been through after recent Ashes tours? Silverwood got bumped off after one, didn't he? Didn't Trevor Bayliss go after an Ashes tour? Oh God, my brain's not working this morning. The Zimbabwean Flower, he went after an Ashes tour. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure Peter Moores went after one. I think he just got in a fight with someone, with Peterson, and got fired for that. At least the first time. Maybe the second time he went after an Ashes tour. The traditional thing
It's usually an
now is
Ashes
to fire
tour.
the cash. Is to fire the coach. I don't know if that's going to help England. To be honest, I think there are definitely thoughts around that fall into the kind of like definition of insanity camp. Maybe they would be better off sticking with a coach and sticking with a plan and trying to refine it rather than bringing a new guy in with a new theory on all of this. I think they are, like, let's be honest, England are quite good fun to watch, and I would rather they sort of played like this and lost than the alternative isn't to play different cricket and win. The alternative is to play different cricket and probably lose 4-1. So you might as well be fun. And for those reasons, I've been reluctant to shuffle things around a lot. And I think as well, you've got to look a bit broader, a bit more broadly. I'm not talking about like redesigning the county championship or the professional game at all, really. I think the level below that, Australia just has a better system for producing good players. India just has a better system at this point for producing good players. And I think England's cricketing infrastructure below the professional level is pretty
Private
shoddy.
schools.
Yeah, and they're not even like, are they even producing good players, really? I think the answer probably is no. Like, it's quite a long time. It's quite a long time since that system has produced really solid, good England teams. The blip England have had, England are one of the 3 best funded teams in the world. They're, because of other circumstances, it might be unrealistic to think that they should spend a third of their time as the best team in the world, but they should be in the mix over like a 40-year period. They should have a spell where they're clearly the best. They had England have had like maybe 6 months over 40 years, where you say maybe a year if you cherry pick the 2005 Ashes winners and say they were the best for a little bit, and then you say then there's another sort of 9 months around the time Flower won in Australia and away in India. Maybe you can extend that out to a couple of years. That's not really good enough. And when you look at the points where they were good, it coincides with them having a fuck ton of South Africans.
Yeah.
It's
well,
not,
even England's best players now, right? I mean, apart from Joe Root, obviously, like, Ben Stokes, the captain, is a Kiwi. Jofra Archer. I mean, Bryden Carr's is South African. He's obviously not England's best player, but he took the most wickets in the series. Jacob Bethel was born in Barbados. Like, it's
yeah. Like, there is a problem with producing players of test level in this country, and until that is addressed, England are going to struggle to be consistently competitive with India and Australia, I think, because they do have systems, and arguably they're falling behind South Africa and New Zealand in terms of the ability to put top level cricketers out on the pitch consistently. Probably won't fall behind those two permanently, just because of the sheer volume of money and the fact that they can steal South Africans. But there's
not as easy anymore now we've left the EU.
No, it's true. But there's an issue there. There's a massive issue with the player pathways. Like, you can't produce one Joe Root every 20 years and be like everything's good. You need a little bit more.
We've wasted quite a few years of Joe Root as well.
Yeah. So that's my view is don't fucking around with McCullum and Stokes. You change the thing, have a different coach if you want. Like, it isn't going to reduce the gulf between the two teams by any significant measure? Like, who's the best coach in the world? Who would you have, Max? Any coach, pick him right now.
Is it Gary Kirsten? Is he the one, the South African guy that everyone's trying to always get? Like,
what's the margin?
Gillespie's quite good, but he's on comms now, so he's got a good gig. Like, yeah, it's I don't know how I don't buy that. Like, good coaches in cricket make that much of a difference. Like, how much management is there really? I mean, I think the big, like, McCullum's actually come in and put an identity on the way England play, which is something you don't often see, I think, from coaches. It's often just a lot of who they pick and whether they pick the right people as much as anything. So
right, Max.
Yeah.
We've got a few super chats to get through, then we're going to do heroes and villains and then wrap this up, and we'll do another podcast about the whole series as well a bit later. James Ress says, "Hey guys, surely Zach Crawley has to go now. He's averaging 30."
I mean, he had to go a long time ago. What is it? What has he got?
Well,
what's he got on Rob Key, man? It's mental.
He might be good in this series. Was sort of what was sustaining the myth, wasn't it?
Now guess what he averaged in this series? Basically exactly 31 or whatever his average is. It's the Zach Crawley paradox. Whatever he does, wherever he goes, he will always average 30. Alistair Cook on like that weird podcast they do with Vaughan and whatever, absolutely bodied him as well. And they were like, I think Bumble was like, "Don't you think there's a player in there?" And he was like, "Absolutely, he's the best player I've ever seen to average 30." And that is Zach Crawley in a nutshell. Time to go.
Sammy says, next up will be a series test loss in South Africa for England. I think that'll be quite a fun series. I think this is next year, isn't it? I think that will be. England actually travelled quite well to South Africa.
They do, yeah.
I don't know why, but they do. I think that could be decent. I think there'll be a couple of like absolute blowout tests, by the way. Like, I don't know if it will be a classic in terms of 5-day thrillers, but I think there'll be some carnage in the 2-day tests and 3-day tests that we do have. And England might do a bit better than people think, I reckon there. If you look at where teams travel, like India really struggle traveling to South Africa. England really struggles traveling to India and Australia. But they do all right in South Africa. So not too worried about that. Sammy says, Bazball as a theory is great. If the Ashes goes as expected, England will fine-tune it or abandon it. Or will another team take it to its logical end? High risk aggression when behind, percentages when ahead. If so, which team? I don't think other teams will do this. I think they will perceive what's happened. I think the view in cricket is that it has failed, basically. And that it was an interesting experiment that now needs to go away. That's not necessarily my view. I think there are definitely times, if not entire series, when playing that way makes a lot of sense. But I think because it's unconventional and because it has now been proven to sometimes be quite embarrassing, most teams will avoid it. People in sport hate being embarrassed.
Yeah. Also, there would be an absolute blanket refusal to openly or otherwise accept that they were taking on something that the arrogant Poms have self-declared as the way to save Test cricket. But I think there are elements of it that you can already see elements of it actually creeping into the way Australia and India play. That might just be sort of some of the players they have at their disposal, right? Like people like Travis Head and Jaiswal and some of the insane ability that those players have. But there are moments, in this Ashes series and India and England where those players basically kicked on in a sort of kind of Bazball aggressive way and put England under the pump. So I think we've seen elements of creeping in already.
All right, Max, I have to go because I'm supposed to be on the radio.
Nice.
Who's your hero and villain of the day?
Ben Stokes will be the hero for taking the field, despite being injured to lead his merry band of merry men once more. Villain for me has to be none other than Kumar Dharmasena. Not Snicko. It wasn't Snicko's fault. Snicko actually did sort of what it was supposed to, right? It showed some pictures. It showed a murmur when the ball passed the bat because Jake Witherell hit the ball. And then Kumar Dharmasena just decided, without actually giving a reason, just said, you can stay with your on-field decision because I can't be bothered to explain it. So he is undoubtedly the villain. Not Snicko, but the umpire.
Cool. I agree with both those things. I do have to go right now. So thanks very much for listening and watching, everyone. Do remember to click like and subscribe, and we'll be back to wrap up the series pretty shortly. Goodbye.